Welcome to Mindfulness Manufacturing. My name is Trevor Blondeel. Spending 25 years in manufacturing, I discovered the real impact we have on turnover, communication, and the ability to manage change is how we show up. That's the essence of emotional intelligence. In each episode, we bring a guest or message to expand your skills, engage your people, and grow your organization. So let's jump in. The best in manufacturing are the best at communicating. And in our research of working with clients and coaching manufacturing, we find that better communication is the key and solves that problem of disconnect. And I am pumped today to bring on an expert because I need a lot of help as well. Patricia Fripp, over 44 years in the National Speakers Association, the first woman president in the Hall of Fame, and an expert in presentations. Patricia, how did you get here?
To get here, I accepted your invitation. To get here as the reputation of being an expert in presentation skills was based on years of focus in one specific area. Now, if we step backwards, I was an entrepreneur in the hairstyling industry. And I had San Francisco's #1 men's hairstyling salon when that was a new industry. And I started speaking to promote my business, started speaking nationwide for a hair product company, having a great time. The star of my Dale Carnegie class and Toastmasters. And I heard about the National Speakers Association, and a professional speaker said, "Patricia, you must go to the National Speakers Association," because we had a convention coming up. And Trevor, I'm a great believer when someone you admire and wish to emulate gives you advice, you don't ask how much does it cost, you do it. And at that first convention, I realized that although I loved my profession, because I started so early, when my lease was up, I would have spent 25 years behind a hairstyling chair. And I knew there'd be another career. And I thought this could be speaking. Now, any goal like becoming a professional speaker is a long-term goal. And I used speaking to promote my business. People started paying me. And then I became a full-time speaker the year I was president of the National Speakers Association. And in those days, I was mostly a keynote speaker, talking about keeping deserving customers, promoting your business, which is what I had done in my business. And over the years of enjoying great success, as with every industry, Trevor, I had a couple of conversations that positioned me to always be in demand, no matter what the economy was, decades after. Perhaps, although I look good, not quite as good on iMag as I might have done at 45. And this was, I had always used speech coaches, taking work with acting coaches, screenwriting classes, any area that could help me, and then ultimately my clients with communication skills. A national sales manager said, "Patricia, I liked your speech. However, I loved how you delivered it. Can you teach our salespeople to speak this way? Because it takes us a year to be in a position to have an hour conversation with the hospital board, and it's worth $9 million a year if we get the business. We're losing business, has nothing to do with our offering. I keep hearing the presentation skills of our competitors is better." So then I took everything I knew about speaking, focused from the point of view of being more persuasive and driving sales. Then another call from a woman who said, 7 of my salespeople came to your speaking school and they came back raving. My husband's a good speaker. However, he has the most important speech of his career. Could I hire you to be a speech coach? And I had heard over the years so many, "Oh, will you be my speech coach?" I was so busy, and I thought, now the shingle is up. So over the years, I have not only maximized everything I've learned, I have developed working with engineers and leaders and in different industries, ways of speaking that work well. And many good speakers know how to give their great speech. It takes a very different skill, Trevor, to teach other people how to improve presentations. Many of them very technical. I don't even understand what they're saying, but it really amazes me how universal principles can be adapted to every type of business communication.
Well, here we go. On your behalf, the listeners, we're going to get some of the speaking secrets that Patricia's big paying clients pay for to learn. And the first thing that I'm a little confused on, if you're listening, you're in manufacturing, we've gone through different presentation skills training, we've all been there. And one of the ones that resonates, and I see it re-quoted on social media, is 7% is what you say, 30% is how you say it, and 55% is how you look, when you're talking. And the more I study the craft and I learn from people like you, Patricia, the words are important. Where's this misconception come from?
Well, first of all, it's total BS because it is the simple example. And interestingly enough, at my first National Speakers Association convention, which was, I'm dating and aging myself, and people think we're the dinosaurs still roaming the earth. It was in I went to my first NSA convention, it was 1977, and I heard a professional speaker use that quote. It is totally out of context. That quote, or the statistics, 7% is what you say, 38% is how you say it, 55% is how you look, was Dr. Albert Morabian, who was studying people standing in line, not even really communicating with each other, but looking at the body language. Had nothing to do with business presentations, with inspiring action and commitment from the people that work for you. It's how leaders communicate with blue-collar workers. It is totally different. When I was a little girl, growing up, I heard my parents tell me stories about how Winston Churchill would come on the radio and with the power of well-crafted, well-delivered words would inspire a nation who would wait for half an hour to buy one orange, who every night was hearing air raid sirens and going into bunkers because the Germans were dropping bombs. He didn't have a PowerPoint. You couldn't even see him. So I was being programmed as a little girl that well-intentioned leaders with well-chosen, well-delivered words can change business and the world.
We lose sight of that in, hey, we just want to get this done. We got tasks to do in manufacturing. We need to make parts. We need to get them out the door. How we say it, hey, I've explained myself. It's usually the other person. They just don't get what I'm saying. What's wrong with them? But a lot of times we got to look at what we're saying. And even before this podcast started, I got a slap on my wrist. There's some naughty Fripp words, and those, can you tell some of our listeners about that?
Well, there are naughty Fripp words. The word that you used was, you said, I studied your stuff. Stuff is rubbish and debris. The word stuff should only be used when you're talking about your turkey at Christmas or Thanksgiving. And I am known for one very important phrase: specificity builds credibility. Credibility, of course, builds confidence in the person who is listening to you. For example, if you have a workforce where English is not their first language, it might be the second as third. Many perhaps come from a culture that doesn't question their boss if they don't understand. So, for example, let's look at, so stuff is rubbish and debris. And yes, if I'm in person, I reach over and I slap, I just, slap my executive.
I felt it.
But it's like a dog. If they do something naughty, you hit them on the bottom with the newspaper. It's just feeling. In Zoom meetings, I I slap myself, but I want to see them slap their hand to get it. Probably the most frequently asked question I ask all my clients is, if it weren't a thing, what would it be? And this drives me crazy. At the National Speakers Association, we're supposed to be the best communicators, and I hear thing. Brilliant minds on the Sunday talk show say, and the thing is, what thing is it? An idea is a suggestion. So this is a perfect example. I work, as you know, a lot with the technology companies. And I help these brilliant engineers get ready to speak at the user conferences. And these people are so smart and so well educated. I mean, I'm in awe of their education, how smart they are. And one said, there are two things people love about. And I said, well, if they weren't things, what would they be? Innovative upgrades.
Oh.
I said, there are billions of people in the world. What people love your innovative upgrades? He said, systems administrators. Can you see the difference between there are two things people love about, and there are two innovative upgrades that systems administrators love? Now, at the conference he was speaking, because I know I was there, they had customers from 71 countries. Now, you're not sure what a thing is if you speak English. Now, in the context of the whole presentation, you might get an idea. But if English is your third language, and at conferences with 71 different countries, many of the people have never learned English. It is simultaneous translation by people who are brilliant at what they do, but they don't have time to think, what does he mean by a thing? It's not their presentation. So and we do not improve, Trevor, what we're not aware of. Mm-hmm. And you would say, oh, I never say that. I don't say stuff. Record your informal conversations and at the dinner table, and you'll find. Another, if it's not fruit or vegetables, it's not a bunch. Now, if you were giving directions to someone, go in the back room, you're going to find a bunch of screws. Now, I don't know how much that is. You go... How about, we've just been to the National Speakers Association convention. Oh, I got a ton of ideas. Look, honey, if you can't weigh it, it's not a ton. You've got to be specific. I was saying to one client, of course, there's a limit to how many people we can coach in a session, but it's unlimited how many people listen to the information on the presentations they will be trained to deliver. And she said, oh, this is great, because Greg just hired a boatload of new people. I said, Michelle, is it a dinghy or an ocean liner? Now, this is important for your listeners in manufacturing to understand. We use words to communicate. However, we very often see what people are saying. And if it's a boatload, is it a dinghy? Is it an ocean liner? So I said, Michelle, how many people is he hiring? She said, Greg just hired 4 people. I said, what's wrong with saying 4 people? So it's being as specific as you possibly can be. And what I would recommend any leader, anybody who has to communicate, speak in shorter sentences. One idea a sentence. Because whether you're on the shop floor, whether you're negotiating with a union, whether you're talking at a management meeting, we are speaking, Trevor, to be remembered and repeated. You give instructions to a team leader, this is what you have to tell your team to do. Well, if they don't remember it in a way to be able to repeat it, there's always going to be something lost in translation. But if you speak in shorter sentences, one idea a sentence, it'll be a lot easier. Be very specific in your word choices and remove wishy-washy language. Now, perhaps that's not a word you use, but in English, wishy-washy, you might even say that about the personality. And when you're communicating, it's always good to pause. Now, when you pause, Trevor, you get to breathe, which is how the energy comes. You also get to think what comes next. But much more important, when you pause, that gives the person listening time to reflect. Oh, that makes sense. Oh, yeah, I hadn't thought about that. Oh, yeah, Fred needs to know this. If you want people to remember what you said, give them time to internalize it. And then, of course, smile whenever possible. And here are words. Now, they belong in the English language, but you shouldn't be using them because they're overused, actually and literally. And I find with all my clients that I find there are themes and there are words, and they work with different companies. They don't know each other, but they are trends. And the overuse of actually and literally. I have some clients that use those words in almost every sentence, certainly every paragraph. And I have an English school teacher who proofs some of my articles for me. And I said, can you give me the rule for actually? When should you use it? She said, it makes me very cross. There's no reason to ever use the word actually. Basically and simply. Now, this is big because manufacturing is very complex. Silicon Valley, my clients' offerings are complicated. Now, what we have to do as communicators is simplify how we communicate the complexity of what we do so that other people can understand. We do have to simplify it. However, never talk about your processes, your products, your offerings as basically or simply. Okay. They're not basic. I said to my clients, if what you were selling was basic or simple, you wouldn't be able to charge hundreds of thousands of dollars for it. You wouldn't have renewals for $500,000 a year. So you simplify the complexity in your communication, but never use the words basically, simply.
Love that.
This drives me crazy. Kind of a sort of. And again, I don't know if people are trying to be more modest, but I ask all my clients, are you kind of going to do it, Trevor, or are you going to do it? But you understand, if somebody is saying to their boss on the shop floor, we kind of going to do this, and we sort of understand that. What do you think? You have no confidence. You have no confidence. Has nothing to do with how smart the people are. It's in communication. We walk away thinking they got it or they didn't. They're going to do it. They're not going to. People say, I'm going to try to do that. No. Try does not get it done.
Or hope.
No, try and hope. No, try and hope. And then, I don't know about manufacturing, Trevor, you're going to tell me, but in Silicon Valley, it seems as if there is only one adjective in the world, and that is super. Super excited, No, I was at a 4-day conference for one of my clients, and their staff, their salespeople were in their 20s and early 30s. And most of the executives were in their 50s, and for 4 days, the only adjective they were using is super everything. And I thought, you are middle-aged people trying to look young and hip for your young audience. It's backfiring. You should be modeling, this is how you communicate if you want to grow in your career. This is how you communicate when you talk to our clients. Apart from that, I have no opinion.
I just got to try to remember 10% of this, and I'm sure our listeners are in the same boat, because I recorded my first podcast and then I listened to it. So the one tip that I think we can all take away, it seems silly sometimes, but if you record yourself, and when I listened to my first podcast, and some of you have heard it, I like to use the word, and I said it about 10 times.
I don't know. Trevor, if it makes you feel any better, we listen to ourselves, and that is the only way, because we will not improve what we're not aware of. And believe me, because I have many of my conversations and coaching sessions transcribed for my clients, and I mean, I roll my eyes. Could I really have done that or said that? Once we improve one area, something else comes up. This is not, you don't learn and then think, I got it for life. You might have got rid of the word stuff. You might have got rid of the word things, but something will come up.
I practiced before getting to talk to you, Patricia, things. And it's really been resonating with me since I heard one of your podcasts. And the first thing I say is stuff, because I was focused on things. So it's going to be a journey. Another thing I see in manufacturing is when someone's trying to explain their point, they'll say the same point 2 or 3 times. What does that do to the receiver of that information? It's
very good to reinforce key ideas. Perhaps 3 times in a row is not the place to do it.
Because I get confused when it's like, okay, you just told him that or her that, and now you're telling them again. I said, why did you tell them 2 or 3 times? I really wanted to make sure they got their message. I'm like, what's another way we can make sure they got the message?
What you can do is you can give them the same amount of information. You have to find a different way to say it. One of my friends was working with, Bill Graham, when San Francisco was no longer with us, but was a big promoter of rock shows. And one of my friends was communicating with his team. He said it was brilliant. I saw people go around and talk to everyone about what they had to do. But every time they went back to check, they were saying it a different way. He said it was a great lesson. Now, I can't tell you exactly what they were saying. My friend was seasoned enough to realize that there was a very valuable lesson.
Less sometimes is more. When you talked about using shorter sentences, coaching, we're trained to do shorter questions, economy of words can be more powerful. If you can be more specific, like we learned at the beginning of this podcast, you can build more of that credibility. And I just love that for so many things we could take away today, but we do love stories. And this morning, I actually had a situation very relative to what you're saying. We work in manufacturing. It's not just one culture. There's always multiple cultures in. Not everyone expresses themselves the same. We do know that people don't care what you know until you can show how much you care. And we don't have to cry to show our emotions, but we need to use our words. And this particular leader was getting feedback that, hey, you need to show your emotions more. I says, well, I'm not going to cry, but I really do care. And do you have any stories in manufacturing or in any insights to this that could give us something to think about, Patricia?
Yes. I was working with the #1 company in manufactured housing, and they had the reputation, well earned, that their commitment to quality and excellence. And as part of my own personal research, I went to see where they were making the manufactured homes. And I was talking to a wonderful gentleman who was the boss. And I said, it's very easy to state your commitment to quality when you work in sales or marketing, but how do you reinforce that idea, with your crew who got the hard hats and the orange earplugs and they're dirty? It's a dirty job. It's not a clean, this is our latest ad layout. And he said, if somebody is not living up to our quality, I bring them in and I have a conversation and I ask, if your mother had invested her life savings into one of our homes and it took 1/3 of her social security check every month to make the payment, would your work be good enough for her? And that's what I call, is it good enough for your mother technique. And this is one of the secrets of a powerful, persuasive presentation. And a presentation is a conversation. A presentation, yes. A presentation is whatever you define it to be. And that is, your subject has to be of interest to your audience. And you might say, Patricia, how is that possible? I go in and companies, say, hey, someone's here to fix you. And I walk in the room and everyone's got their arms folded. And I know, I've been there. We've all built our career on these type of situations. And the secret is to speak. Now, even what that manager was doing, he wouldn't have called it this. You speak as an audience advocate. You look at what you're saying from the point of view of a person, the person you're talking to. Now, that could be an audience made up of different people. So you make sure that you introduce a technique and you say, for those of you in payroll, it's this. For you in HR, this means this. And let's not forget the IT heroes that made our new system possible. In other words, so you're talking to one person, and I don't care what culture you grew up in, punks would be more scared of their mothers than the police. And most blue collar, white collar, pink collar, I don't care what collar, your mother is one of the biggest influences in your lives. And to get that person to think about his job from the point of view of, is it good enough for my mother? That would be much better than showing him the manual of rules and regulations and what's expected. And when it shows, now I don't know what advice I would give to your manufacturing client you were talking to this morning, but what I do know, any leader needs to show the person behind the position. I had an assignment where I had to work with the president of a company. I had to get him ready to deliver a speech to 1,500 salespeople. 40% of them had been acquired. In other words, they had not chosen to work for this company. And the message he had to get across was, you're at the right place at the right time and our strategy is sound. And going through his presentation, I said, Bernard, when was the first time you learned the importance of strategy? And he said, it was when I was a 14-year-old ball boy before the French Open. And he said people were coming in to see the French Open. They didn't realize they'd be watching a game with the ball boys first. And he said, I was playing against my best friend and we were equally matched in talent and experience. And in this case, our ball boy was his sister, and she wanted her brother to win. So the way she was throwing the balls was trying to make her brother win. And he said, that, Patricia, was the time I learned the importance of strategy, being equally matched with my competition, but at a disadvantage. And he asked me what most executives do, and perhaps your listeners might be thinking, do they care about these simple personal stories? And I said to Bernard, and I would say to your manufacturers, yes, because we will respect a position, plant manager, president, sales manager, head of quality and control. You'll fight in the street for the person behind, especially the person that asks you how your vacation was. How did your kids' ball game go? Is your mother feeling better? The secret of networking is to go out and meet new people that you hope to influence, develop a relationship. Is to be considered interesting, you have to be interested. And because in manufacturing, as any other industry, there are times that we have to be tough. There are times we have to tell people, sorry, this isn't good enough. That is much easier to take if you speak as an audience advocate, when just you have a little walk through every so often and not always business.
Yeah.
Just a personal comment. And then when you have to be tougher, it'll be a lot easier. It'll be well accepted.
Show the person behind
the position. Yeah.
The position. Show the person behind the position. With those magic words right there and having that dialogue. Dialogue is a foundation of relationships. And this is why people stay. If you were driving listening to this, you're going to need to take some notes and listen again. We're going to put some great stuff in the show notes. Might be our biggest show notes ever. Oh my gosh.
Great stuff. We're going to give them links to where they can get free magic resources.
I am like a addict that has to get off it. So you can see, even with a great coach like Patricia Fripp, I have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do, and we are going to make manufacturing a more sophisticated, a more professional, a more connected industry. And if our listeners want to follow more, Patricia, how do they do that?
Go to Fripp, my name, fripp.com. Click on free resources. I have a wonderful Tuesday mailing on communication skills and presentation skills, but wonderful free resources. If anyone really is interested in improving their presentation skills, they can go along on fripp.com to Fripp VT, which stands for virtual training, and immediately get a free trial and go in the system. That is a very cost-effective way to learn on my 45 years of secrets in one place.
That is awesome. Check it out. I will be, because as you can see in my vulnerability, I got some work to do. Thanks so much, Patricia.
My pleasure.
Hey folks, appreciate you taking the time to join us today. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone. Haven't subscribed yet? Do it now. Remember, if you want results, The key is increasing your awareness of how you show up.